So I'm here with Chris. Now he's a filmmaker behind a film called Begheera, which is a short, a dramatic short actually, that's in competition at our festival in London. And Annie, who's actually translated the English script to Hindi, I believe.
Right.
Congratulations, welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
And
Thank you.
lovely,
Yep,
thank you for your
exciting.
time. So the obvious first question, who would like to give me the synopsis of the film, for those that haven't seen it?
Oh, I think I'll dive in there.
Okay.
So Begheera is a very bright and resourceful young scout leader leading a troop of girls that meet on the outskirts of Mumbai in India. And one night after a meeting, she's abducted by a horrible man who has a fairly nefarious end in mind, but she's well accomplished. She's wearing her sash with all her Girl Guide achievements.
She's got this is kind of the crux of the film, that she's ready for anything that can be thrown at her. Isn't it?
That's it. The Boy and Girl Scout, the Scout Guide motto is "Be prepared," and she's
prepared. I've seen the film a couple times.
Yeah, she's well prepared, and things don't work out well for her assailant. And it is kind of a quite fun. It's a really fun film, I think. I hope you'd agree with me there.
Yeah. I thought it was. In fact, I thought it was beautifully shot as well. I know there's a lot of night scenes in this film, but actually it was cinematographic. It's beautiful to look at.
Oh, good.
So
my DP will be thrilled to hear that. no, he's done a cracking job.
He's done a cracking job.
Lovely guy.
So there's all kind of questions that I can ask you, but I suppose the obvious one is not so much why choose the girl guide, because thematically that fits that she is prepared, of course, but where did this idea come from? What's the kernel of this, and how did it all kind of come about?
Well, in the sort of social zeitgeist at the moment, there's massive focus on addressing the kind of imbalance that exists between the genders, and that is really poignant in India. There's a lot of work to do. There's an enormous amount of violence perpetrated against women, and this film. And
to be fair, you read about that in English a lot. It's becoming only in the last couple of weeks. There's lots of more and more cases we're becoming. It's been peeled back a bit.
It's by no means my objective is not to sort of to vindicate to look at India as a hotbed for this. I mean, it's the single domestic violence, the single biggest killer of women in the Western world.
Is that right?
2 women a week in Great Britain.
In Great Britain, right? Okay.
3 a week, 3 per fortnight in Australia. So we are by no means some sort of squeaky clean bunch standing apart. Putting the microscope on, magnifying glass on India. It just so happens that I have been sort of entrenched in India and love India very much, and this is a really poignant issue, and as a filmmaker I feel compelled to try to do something that is useful with my skill set, so to speak. So that this is very important to me, this particular issue. And
I think, if you don't mind me saying, there'll be quite a few people that even now don't really fully understand the class system in India, and I say that I have a kind of understanding, but I would imagine and this sounds patronising to people that may be watching this, but I'm only being honest. I would imagine there's quite a few people that don't really understand just how entrenched and intricate the class system is there. Would that be a fair thing to say?
It absolutely.
It's incredibly complicated, isn't it?
It's very, very complicated because. Annie is actually a Brahmin, which is the highest caste.
Yes.
But it's so complex how it works because, for example, it's almost sort of ends up getting a bit reversed in some situations. Like for Annie's daughter to enter university, she has to pay the highest fees. It's not because their family is necessarily rich, but because they're from the highest caste, where a rich family from a lower caste pays lower fees. So how is that fair? It's not based on means. Those fees were based on caste. There's a lot of problems with the caste system. I mean, this film doesn't really dive too much into caste.
No, but I just thought I'd mention that because, we got on the subject and there are intricacies, of course, of any country and any culture that you may not understand unless you're British, and I don't understand it. What I'm trying to get at is it's very interesting to see not necessarily your film, and try and understand with the caste system, because to me it looks a bit like I could say the wrong thing and be trying to kind of tread an eggshell, because it is so complex, isn't it? You know?
It is. I mean, do you want to sort of comment on that, Annie?
We're sort of getting off the track of the film here, so I do this all the time. But it was just, I'll tell you how this came, because we were talking about the Me Too campaign last night with a couple of filmmakers that are here, and I was very careful not to say too much, because it's all suddenly blown up and there's lots of things coming out, and it's almost every day there's new revelations, and it's absolutely right that this becomes a known massive issue. And two of the girls I was speaking to are actually live in LA, you might be surprised to know them. They were telling me how they perceived it from their point of view and what's going on, and the upheaval, and how this spotlight's been put on it. So in a very unconnected way, and nothing to do with that, what I'm trying to say is, you know, you mentioned this earlier, what's happening, and all of a sudden it's become more known about in the UK. Because it's been reported a lot more, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at, you know. But I don't really I'm ignorant in terms of, because I've not been to India, and I don't really have a clue about what's going on. I mean, I do understand a little bit about the caste system, because I know of other filmmakers that have, you know, and you know, I do have, but even to my mind, it seems very complex. So perhaps, I don't know, perhaps you can, you know, your feeling about that, and is it changing, or is it? I suppose that's the question. Is it staying the same, or are things slowly changing?
It has changed a lot since like last few years, but still the casteism is there, right? So the higher caste, as we are differentiated in 4 different castes, right? So they have reservations for the lowest caste, okay? And even if they are rich, they are paying very less fees.
Which is what you were talking about, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
I suppose with the advent of social media, because I think India is the highest ownership per capita in the world, isn't it, of mobile phones?
Would not surprise me.
I think it is, but I guess what I'm trying to say, with lots of things now, with the social media and like with the Arab Spring, it's very difficult to hide things now, isn't it? Is the point I'm trying to make, and I suspect that's the same in India. There are things that are being seen that weren't necessarily being seen. And this is all good stuff that I'm talking about, of course. So, what are the truth, I guess, for any situation that we would perceive as being a negative is very difficult to bury now, isn't it? I suspect.
I'd sort of
do you see where I'm going with this?
I'd go with you on that, but I also think truth is very hard to identify for the exact same. Through the same reasons, in as much as the media, you know, you can sort of say anything.
The fake news, I guess.
News it's very difficult to watch any kind of mainstream media. You've really got to do so much personal research to work out what is actually going on and what is the real truth and what your action can be. And you know, that for me is something that I hope is kind of present in Begheera. Like, the focus for me is to put the onus back on the individual. Begheera is this powerful young woman who is accomplished. She has all these skills. She doesn't click Google to know something about electrical safety or whatever that comes into play in the course of this narrative.
Because she's quite empowered. She is empowered. We should point out again, because those who haven't seen it, she's very positive, which is a great thing, and very empowered.
Sorry
and
to disturb you, but also she kept her cool. That's the...
She what, sorry?
True.
Right?
She kept her cool.
She kept it actually excellent, she did keep her cool.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no panic at all, is there?
Exactly. You just go panic and you don't know what to do. And when you observe that girl, she was just calm, so quiet. Like, she was doing her thing. That was the best part.
And in fact, how she turned, she's right. Yeah, you're right. And actually, how she turns the tables at the end. Again, I know we can't talk about this because you want to keep that hidden, but you're absolutely spot on. She's very smart and very cool under pressure, isn't she?
Exactly.
But again, I wonder how much of that played into how much that thematically was from the point, because you obviously chose her to be a girl for a reason. I know we talked about this. Yeah. But it's calm under pressure,
Yeah. Well, I mean, just for me, she's quite aspirational. She's beautiful. You see how gorgeous she is at the beginning when she's addressing the Girl Scouts, and she's very nurturing with the 2 little ones that received that award, which is only a moment in the film, but it gives you some of her soft side. And then as the film unfolds, She's just not to be messed with. But she has the substance to carry off what was quite a brave resistance. You know, those skills. She's equipped. That, I think, for me is important. You know, she has knowledge. She has real knowledge. She has real know-how. I mean, I meet lots of.
Yes, you have a knowledge, but sometimes you don't. You just forget how to imply those things, right? At what point? And she did exactly that.
Yeah.
It's taught to every girl, Scouts and Guides girl, all the skills.
Now this
Yeah.
is
But
interesting.
But you don't know at that situation what you're actually putting your which skill there and using it to protect yourself.
This is very interesting because I'm
Yeah.
wondering, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
wondering, Chris,
that's
when you
good.
were making the film, and I know, Annie, you were brought in to translate into Hindi, but at any time, would Annie say, quite rightly, I can see what you're trying to do, but this isn't exactly how it would happen in the... Did you...
Well, she's a very,
Does that
very
make sense?
close friend, absolutely. And the script got read many times to Annie.
Yeah.
And so there were a number of things where she would say, well,
It's
yes,
not quite how-
but
yeah.
it wouldn't be like this. And I mean, personally, that's for me part of what's so exciting about this kind of filmmaking, about making films in India and making them in Hindi, because I'm not a fluent Hindi speaker. And whilst I'm passionate about Indian culture, I certainly don't know everything. I've learnt a lot now, but I still fall over all the time. But it's a beautiful thing because you write something and then you're compelled to rethink it. And it's a beautiful new filter to put on the front of the camera, because you have to adapt where you thought you were going into somewhere else, and it forces some new invention.
So with Annie, was she originally brought in to do the Hindi translation, but actually she became a bulwark in certain terms of suddenly she's saying, I'll do that, but actually I've looked through the script and this isn't exactly how... Do you see what I'm trying to get at here?
Yes, absolutely.
And suddenly you're thinking, oh, hang on.
That's exactly what would happen. Exactly what would happen. I'd say, you know, what's this line? And she'd go, well, yes, you could say it like that, but then she might say, well, you wouldn't use it in that circumstance or that context, or you wouldn't use it unless you'd done X, Y, Z, or such a person wouldn't necessarily say it because of blah, blah, blah. And it brings a lovely level of invention to the process. I mean, you've got to be collaborative to do stuff like this, but I'm thrilled by it.
No, I mean, it is a brilliant, it's a beautifully made film, and as I said at the beginning,
Thank you.
and do you mind me, I mean, I have seen films that have been, many films have been shot in India with Indian cast, but they've actually had English dialogue.
Okay.
Now, I'm not trying to this is about a point of view, but I'm guessing, did you ever consider having it as an English dialogue? Was it always going to be a Hindi from the, because you could have done that, I think, couldn't you? But
No,
I know it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't be authentic.
Right,
It
okay.
wouldn't be authentic, and I think it
Right.
I think it gathers so much power. For me, you know, this film in part grew from the kernel that I'd nursed for a long time. Years ago, I saw Itu Mama Tambien, and
Yeah, great film.
superb piece of work.
Yeah.
And because I think it was in Portuguese or Spanish? I can't remember
I think
now.
I can't remember. It was one, I always get them mixed up, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't say to, just
anyway.
don't say to Brazilian, oh, you speak really great Spanish.
Yeah. But I remember being absolutely struck by it. But it's essentially, you know, it's a sort of rite of passage road movie, beautifully made and all of that. But I was like, well, if that had been made in sunny Perth, two young fellas get on the road with a yummy mummy.
I see your point. It's not
was
going
like-
to be the same, is it?
We wouldn't have had, and it's not to say that the language just turns the trick, but it helps. I think it really helps. And like if Begheera was made in the suburbs of Birmingham or something, it'd be gritty, a lovely
I
gritty
can see where
British
you're
film.
going. Yeah.
But it wouldn't have all the nuances that she has, because she's just got Indian culture woven.
I guess,
end to end.
yeah, and I probably didn't explain that well. What I meant was, you're absolutely right. What I meant was, you could have made the film exactly as it was, but have an English dialogue.
Yeah.
But
But you-
again, you would lose all that, wouldn't you?
Like he wanted to make it in Hindi.
I understand,
and
of course.
Also, you don't get the feel of those words, exact Hindi words, in English. You cannot exactly translate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
the way she said them in the movie, it's a bit different.
And would you mind me, how many actresses did you see for that lead part?
To be honest,
Because she's very, very good, let's be honest.
she's superb, and I've known her for quite a while. And
Was she in the frame to begin with?
she was in the frame. She was involved early on with some of the adaptation work,
Right.
and I always thought Preeti would do a lovely job of it. I mean, she's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I don't typically don't like to cast friends, or just because you're my friend, I want to
Yeah,
cast
makes
you.
sense. I know,
I
makes
want to
sense
cast
difficult,
for the character. And Preet did some camera tests and workshops. I made her do some, I asked her to do some workshops and so forth to see how she would get hold of this character and what prep she was prepared to do. And she went through some pretty rigorous training for the role and one thing or another. So whilst I didn't do a casting call per se, I did have a long, hard look at Preet to make sure I felt she was going to deliver. And after she did those sort of camera tests and one thing or another, I was like, no, she's the girl for this. And we workshopped a lot. Every single line of the thing was workshopped multiple times, and I'm a very performance-orientated director, and also I like it to be beautiful. My DP did a superb job.
Yeah, like you said, it
working on
definitely,
that.
yeah, it looks fantastic, yeah.
But yeah, it was.
I mean, literally crystal clear. The colours are superb. I mean, it just pops
cheers.
off, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, that's
lovely,
good
yeah.
to hear. The colourist will be thrilled to
Yeah,
hear
no,
that
this
too.
is lovely.
'Cause, but yeah, she was the one from the word go. But I did make her kind of work for
Jump
it.
through the hoops.
Yeah, I think you have to. Your casting is. I think Peter Weir says casting is 80% of the director's job, and that I totally go with that. And I mean, I think Rajesh as well. It's really important to look at Rajesh because
No, he's the protagonist,
he's
isn't
the
Is that
antagonist.
the right word? Antagonist,
Yeah.
so I always get them
yeah,
mixed
no,
up,
not
yeah.
at all. And Rajesh is a very well-known actor in India, and we were incredibly lucky that he just saw the script and was like, and he normally does comedy. And
Does he
does
really?
lots of comedy.
Because he's one mean guy.
He's so gnarly looking. And the thing is, I looked at all this work and I thought that the production team were mad, first of all, when they brought him along. He's doing all these comedy things. And then I listened to this interview where he talked about how he loved to get into character and he liked to do this and do that. And I was like, ooh, if he gets this character, he's going to bring an amazing edge to this, because it'll just be such a different beast for him to dive into, and he brought it in spades, and the two of them they're equally as important. I mean, Rajesh has most of the dialogue. Preet, the difficult thing for her as an actress was she doesn't have much dialogue. She's got to do a lot of standing around trying to work out whether she's frightened, curious, terrified, empowered, and we sort of quickly worked out that there were about 4 things she could sort of do, and how do we manage those into a performance arc when you've got nothing to say. I mean, yes, she has lines, but not till right at the end, and they're quite curt,
Yeah.
smug little lines, but all her real work goes on in responding to Rajesh, and Rajesh just absolutely brings it in terms of making that character, making that mean guy, making the force that Preeti has to resist.
And could it have been a feature? I suppose you thought about it.
Well,
It's to keep that buzz going for an hour and a half, I guess, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
sorry to interrupt, but it effectively would be a two-hander. That's the thing, isn't it?
well, I think I want this to now become a feature. I mean, I made this as a test film. It really, because we, working with my producer, Sakar Rout, who is also a very important part of this equation, because, he got this from the first reading. He was like, oh my God, Chris, you got, he just took off with this.
Yeah.
And he, pulled the money together from India, and we got that together. But I mean, I just wanted to make a test film because I have this whole vision for making films in India. I think it's a really, really exciting time for India, like independent filmmaking is just on the sort of crest of an amazing, about to break wave.
Yeah.
And Begheera was a little, a test vehicle for that, to test the team, see if they could do it, see if I could be writing in English and adapting into Hindi, and was that going to have credibility, and was it going to work, and how well could we actually polish this little beast, you know? And we're of course really thrilled with it, and it absolutely, at the moment, there's a lot of wheels turning to develop this into a feature, because there's a sort of shortage of really well-made thrillers in India.
No, there's mainly features. I can't really recall seeing. You know, I'm struggling now to think of it.
It's not. Yeah, they just sort of don't.
Because it's very interesting, because you've actually got a marketing company, which is very rare in filmmaking, which I think is a really good move, by the way.
Right.
If you don't mind saying, because sorry, I interrupted then. But
no, that's not.
This is quite an interesting point, and for anyone that's watching, my belief, and I do say this to filmmakers, is you've made the film, brilliant, it's amazing. What about the marketing? And then they'll sit there and go, oh, we haven't really thought about that. And actually, what you've done is a very good way of doing it, because perhaps you could explain why it's intrinsically important to market your film. I mean, because a lot of filmmakers do fall down on that. I'll be honest, I know
right.
they do. You know, and obviously, I mean, I'm involved in marketing, but a filmmaker, by their very nature, wants to build their project and get it to screen. Fantastic. What's next? And then, you know, they're left scratching their heads and haven't really thought about it.
Well, you've got to be thinking, you know, where is this in the process? Because short films really have to be a means to an end.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes, they're a beautiful form of expression unto themselves. Don't get me wrong, but like, if you're planning on getting a mortgage or doing some of those sort of grown-up things
that we all have to do, yeah.
Kind of get sucked into. I mean, you've got to make a buck to do that, and short films, whilst the commercial side of that is growing, it's not immediately present. You know, I mean, it certainly hasn't been historically. So you're ultimately looking for to create a feature vision, and the short film vehicle enables you to say, yes, I'm a capable filmmaker. You know, I've made this. It's so many minutes long. Times that by whatever factor, and I could give you a feature film. Kind
of like a proof of concept. That's why I always look at them. Yeah.
And Begheera is absolutely a proof of concept piece.
Yeah.
And so there's a very big picture bubbling away behind Begheera with 3 other films, in fact.
So the feature version of Begheera has ultimately become something else. Is the script in place for that?
There's a treatment in place for Begheera, but no. I mean, I've got 2 other films that are already written to shoot in India.
Features?
Feature-length pieces. Okay. Yeah, and Begheera is on the sort of slab at the moment. I wanted to make. Yeah, it's a very kind of considered business plan that I'm working with, and I think I need a chunk of money to make Begheera, because she should be the sort of Indian answer to the Bourne Ultimatum.
Right. Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
She and she's that heroine. She's the girl power version of Jason Bourne. You know. She's in a different format. I mean, nothing's the same as anything else, right? But because she's all Girl Scouted up and all of that, but she can. You know, we can make a film with that kind of impact and technical finesse. But with a woman, female lead, dealing with some really important contemporary issues that are all roaming through Indian society and through the world, because it's certainly not about. I love India. I'm not anti-India at all, but India is this amazing sort of, for me, just this rich bed of possibilities and ideas and culture and vision and so forth. It's very fresh to be working there, and at the same time I can comment. Anything that's in Begheera, any sort of political commentary or thematic commentary that's there is absolutely applicable in the West. It's just, I don't know, we're framed by Indian culture.
And on that note, perhaps I should be asking you, Sally, how difficult is it, and I'm talking about behind the camera, not as an actress, how difficult is it, and please don't, I'm not asking a patronising question, I'm just trying to be a realist here, how difficult is it for women in the main to break into filmmaking on behind the camera, whether you're a script writer, a director, or producer? Is it a very difficult profession to crack as a female?
Yeah, it is.
And is that because it's a male clothes shop? What is the? Can you? I suppose what I'm trying to ask is how. Can you give us a flavour of the difficulty of becoming any kind of involved in filmmaking in any way, shape or form as a female? How difficult that is? Is it something you can elaborate on?
Right. I mean, most of the female producers or directors or whoever are, they have a family background. It makes them easier to continue. But like for a common girl who doesn't have a background in films, she's not allowed to be outside the house for long hours and something like that. And
so unless you've got very deep pockets, or you happen to have been married into a family that has a long production history,
exactly.
it's
every time she has to answer, oh, where were you? Yes, I had a meeting, but then you should finish your meetings in time and come home early. But filmmaking is not that. You have to work overnight, sometimes days together and something like that.
So you've got to break down all of that. That must be so difficult.
It's a difficult country to probably assert your individuality, is India generally. I think it's easy for us to take for granted. We were actually with friends last night who were saying, well, if my parents didn't like something I did, I'd just tell them to.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
and
because that's our culture, isn't it?
And I will just do my own thing. You can't do that in India.
Right.
There's huge respect for the parents, but you can't just go shove it, mum and dad, and I'm out of here.
I'm not becoming an engineer or a doctor. I'm off to make films or whatever they want you to do.
I mean,
I'm sorry, you know what I mean.
It's just a lot harder to assert your individuality there for people, and even more so for women, because the expectation is that they're going to be the homemaker, and that's that. And
what are the opportunities? What's quite interesting about you is you're an Australian, obviously living. Is the Australian film industry big enough to do the kind of projects that you want, or is that? Or if the answer is no, can you explain why you came to here? I'm going with this, don't you? So I suppose the general question is, what's the situation of the Australian film industry right now in terms of projects you want to get off the ground? And the support, I guess.
Well, I mean, the thing...
Not that I want you to stay in Australia, but you can see where I'm going with this, because of course it's be interesting to know how difficult it is.
Well, one of the things that currently, one of the situations at the moment is that Australia doesn't have a co-production treaty with India.
Right.
But Britain does.
Right, okay.
And Australia has a co-production treaty with Britain. And I have both passports, and I've done lots of work in the UK, and I'm very at home here in London. And I basically bounce between London, Mumbai and Perth in Western Australia. And I would
I was in Perth a couple of months ago. Huh?
Oh yeah, it's not a bad little corner of the world.
No, it's lovely.
It's very nice. And it would be, I see a really interesting way to bring all this together, to make films. If there's this Bourne Ultimatum type film, if Begheera takes hold like that element, they're very international films. The fact that the whole film has a primary thread from India, it'll end up shooting all over the place, likely in the UK and Australia so and I guess I sort of see myself as a film, as an international film, as a filmmaker of planet Earth. A person that can express in any nation, and I love that I have this opportunity to express things in India. So I don't know how accurately I can sort of comment on the status of the Australian industry. I mean, I think really the commercial side of film is a bit of a numbers game. Basically,
it absolutely is. Yeah.
And our population in Australia is the entire population of the nation is not much is a million more or something than the entire population of Mumbai itself.
Yeah, and apparently this, I was reading this the other day, it's a generalisation. It's kind of the same, which I know Australia's enormous. It's the same kind of land mass in terms of square miles compared to North America. But is it 1/10 or 1/20 of the population? I can't remember what I read. It's something. It's incredible.
It'd be a tenth of North America. So I think they're about 250 million or so. Their population in Australia is only 25 million. So it really just comes down to number crunching. And when I first came to the UK years ago, and I was like, wow, what it is about London is that London is this sort of English-speaking capital of Europe, which, I mean, not wanting to do political
until we Brexit, but let's just not talk about that.
But we still,
total embarrassment.
But we still, and I don't mean that to discredit all the other places that do make films in English. But if you, we have this sheer luck. By sheer luck, we have the English, and we end up being a sort of cultural capital within Europe. Which I guess I take would be contentious for many my continental
but I know what you mean.
brothers and sisters. But that just on a commercial level, it means that.
Listen, we had Shakespeare. It doesn't matter what anyone says; no one can top that one. Whatever they say, whoever you care to mention, you can't beat that. So we've got the best. We've had the best. So don't worry.
Yeah, and so I think so much of the sort of I'm working on a TV commercial at the moment for Nestle that's come. The creative is coming out of Switzerland and Lucerne, and they're shooting in London. So they're not shooting in Switzerland.
No. And there's a reason for that, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to say that. I understand where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's just a fact that's just a fact.
But I guess the entire reason for saying that is to say that Australia is a small population base, and I mean somehow you've got to bring your creative and your commercial together. And yes, I'm a director and a writer. And really I'm a creative head first, an artist first, and a producer second. And I can only work when I have really powerful business people that go, wow, we love what you're doing. We're going to give you. We've got your back.
Which is the commercial side, which you've got to. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm happy to say that I know every filmmaker I meet. First and foremost, they're creators. They're absolutely down to a T, 100%. But they also all recognise, although I never ever ask about budgets, none of my business, because I know that ultimately what they want to do is at least make their money back. At least, obviously, they'd rather make a profit.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, they want their visionaries, artists, whatever you want to call them. They want to get these projects out. But in the real world, we all know that there's got to be someone. The buck stops somewhere with someone paying for something, isn't it? Whatever you do.
It's ultimately got to be a business. Yeah. You've got to think about it as a business. And for years I sort of resisted that. And then I was like, actually, what if I came at it from that side? What if I came at it going, okay, what commercial business can I set up? And I discovered that my artistic side does not suffer for that. Like the creative bit's going to come out anyway. That's just a given. Doesn't matter what it is. You start with trying to write a commercial film, which was one of these other feature films, was started from that point of view, and it's actually so creative, that other project, but it was designed to just work as it's a bit of a Billy Elliot set in India kind of a story, and that brings together ballet and Bharatanatyam, one of the ancient dance forms.
Right.
And we saw this as a way of, these in terms of co-productions, as a way of bringing culture from two or the three nations, Britain, Australia and India, together. But it will be a very beautiful, deeply creative piece, because you'll have all of this amazing dance, incredible fusion of the balletic, classical music with Indian traditional music. So you come up with a commercial idea, but the outpouring of it will ultimately be highly creative as well. And I don't know. So anyway, I'm certainly trying to think of it commercially, because it's not been my strong suit. So now, if I can come at it from that angle, maybe I'll get the chances I want to be able to make the big films that carry home this sort of humanitarian vision that my films are really all about delivering.
Brilliant. That's it. Thank you very much. Would you believe there's 36 minutes gone? Thank you. Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
हम सब एक गुट हैं। पैक, डिसमिस।
बच के निकल के आ गई। चाहिए किसी को मारने के लिए एक खास इंसान बनना पड़ता है।
तुम्हें क्या ये गुड़िया गुड़िया लगा रखा है?